All right, I'm making this video because I had one goal, and I feel like it was a pretty common goal. I wanted to create a web app, expose it to the internet, and I wanted the web app to support routing as well as WebSockets. And I just feel like a lot of the resources that I was attempting to follow made it way more complicated than it needed to be. And then in the end, it didn't even work anyway. So what we're seeing here is a culmination of all of those blog posts, a lot of back and forth with ChatGPT, and then a bunch of trial and error. And this is not a tutorial. I'm not going to go over any, or I'm not going to write any code. I'll go over the code, but essentially this is just my experience. If you have a similar goal to me, then you can sort of take what I did here, maybe do it on your end, and then you don't have to follow a 2 hour long video explaining like the inner workings of React, because that's not what this video is for. So so yeah, so like I said, this is built in React, and we use React routing. So if I go to /private, for example, it's just a route that goes to this component that has the word test in it. But if I go to this /test route, this actually sets up a connection to a WebSocket server, and that's really it. It's not there isn't a whole lot going on here, but I feel like this is good enough of a foundation to be able to like really create complex, extensive user interfaces and web apps that, for me at least, is exactly what I was looking for. Right. So some of the other technologies that I'm using, obviously I'm using Nginx to expose it to the internet, but Nginx is running in a Docker container. The backend's also running in a Docker container. That's a Node.js backend. I'm using NoIP, which takes your dynamic IP address and maps it to a DNS that you create. It's free, and it's because I'm actually running this from my house. This is all running in a Raspberry Pi, the front end and the back end. So essentially, this is what the system diagram looks like, right? And I'm going to be the first one to say that I don't fully understand all of the inner workings of everything happening here. We're going to kind of go over that as we continue, and then hopefully someone could shed some light on those gray areas. But essentially, like I said, the front end is Nginx running in a Docker container that points to a React project. The React project sets up its own routes, and one of those routes exposes a WebSocket client, or it creates a WebSocket client that connects to a WebSocket server, and it's all written in TS, right? And that's what we're seeing. The back end is, like I said, it's also a Docker container. It's running a Node.js app that is essentially just a WebSocket server, and that's also written in TypeScript. So I'm pretty satisfied with the system diagram. I don't, like I said, it's really good foundation. There's a lot of technology being used here, and I feel like there's not a single resource out there that, at least that I found, that incorporates all of this. And that was really the difficulty in getting to have a actual working web app. So we're going to go over the front end first. Like I said, it's React, but very standard stuff. Okay, so this is like the default index.tsx that they generate with the build script, or the create script. And I didn't even touch this actually. So we're just gonna keep going. This is the app.txx. This is where I set up my routing. So we kind of went over this, right? The private route and then the test route. The Manatee route I took from some blog post, but essentially, I took the name Manatee from some blog post, but I basically just deleted everything and put in the word test, and that's what we saw there. The test route is ChatGPT special, but essentially a lot of this is boilerplate. But what I wanted to focus on was the fact that it connects to a WebSocket server that's running on like localhost. At port 8080, which the port is just whatever port the WebSocket server is using. And it can use localhost, as far as I know, is because the container the container for the front end and the container for the back end are both running on the same machine. And as long as you port forward the correct ports from each Docker container, essentially everybody's happy. So if my front end was running on a different server than my backend, then this wouldn't be localhost. It would be the IP of whatever machine was running my backend. But since they're on the same machine, I can use localhost here. and then we console log that it's connected to the WebSocket server. So that's really the only thing that I wanted to focus on for this, and it's only for the test route, right? I don't create a WebSocket connection here or at the root, and I don't pass it in as like some sort of component property. I just create it for this test route, and then that's it. So this is a Docker file for creating the front end. So first, we build the React project, right? I'm not a Docker expert at all. I know what Docker is and I know how Docker works. But like being able to just spit out a Docker file, I cannot do that. I will tell you now. So a lot of this was referenced from ChatGPT. But essentially, as far as I'm aware, of course, anybody correct me if I'm wrong. This is just the way that I interpret it. We build the React app, right? We copy in the package JSON. So essentially, where is it? It's right here. So this is all generated using the create React app script that's out there. So then we install the packages. We copy everything over, and I believe there's a Docker ignore that says ignore node modules, so that we don't copy all of this because it'll get generated anyway. Then we just run the build script that will put the final UI into some build directory, and then that's what we actually serve, right? We don't serve this. We serve whatever crazy optimized HTML that they come up with, right? So we run this build script, and that will generate the build file, right, for the front end, and then that's great. Now we need to actually build the Nginx image that we will run. So there's no commands being ran here, right? We essentially build it, and then we just sit on it. But for the Nginx image, we actually do run it at the very end. So we build the Nginx image. We copy the build that was generated from this build script. We copy the front end final build into where the Nginx is expecting to serve the HTML from. And then here I'm copying in my custom Nginx config into where the Nginx would expect its config to be. And then I'm exposing port 80 on this Docker image, because that's the port that HTTP uses. And again, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. This is just my interpretation of how all of this works. And then essentially we just run the image. We just run the Nginx config. So this is my Nginx config. It's actually extremely bare bones. I actually tried before I made this video to get rid of this and then run it again, because I'm like thinking to myself, well, this is so like, there's nothing here. Do I even need it? Because I feel like the default Nginx config, this would essentially be it. But no. So when I did that, the root worked because it's serving like it's basically serving this just the root route, but any route past this, it can't find it. So essentially this is needed. I'm not 100% sure as to why. I'm not familiar at all with Nginx configs, but essentially my understanding is that this config says that when a user connects to the root route, serve them the HTML that is in our HTML, like where we expect our HTML to be. And our Docker file, remember, we put our React there. So like that's how that's able to work. Like that's how when we go to slash as a root, or we go to the root route, right? And then we go to slash test, because it's serving the React stuff the entire time, essentially. So that's my understanding of that. And that's it. That's all the Docker file, or that's all we need to run the front end. And then so now we'll look at the back end. Essentially, it's very, very simple stuff. This is again ChatGPT special, but it's just creating a WebSocket server on port 8080, and essentially when we get a message, we just echo that message back to all the connected clients. Now I'm going to tell you this right now. This doesn't work as I would expect. If I say test and then I click send, the backend server crashes. Okay, so like like I'm okay with that though, because the point is that we like the front end successfully connects to the back end. That's all I cared about. The fact that the back end crashes when I do some event, that's just your run of the mill bug. Okay, I can fix that. But the fact that we even have that connection is like what's very important to me. So so I wouldn't copy this word for word, but essentially the only part that we really wanted to focus on here was the fact that we're exposing on 8080, and that we see these messages saying that clients are connected. That's all I care about today, and I'll fix the bug later. And also one thing I wanted to mention, the Nginx config, the server name is localhost. So I don't know if I said this already, but the Docker container that's running the front end is on the same machine as the container that's running the back end. So this can be localhost because the server name's local. Because the server name can be localhost. The WebSocket server can be localhost. Everything can be localhost because it's all running on the same machine. And so I think that's fine for today. I don't have the answer for like what this would look like, the Nginx config, if the server was running somewhere else. I believe that this would always be localhost though, because the React because the React project would always be in the same container since I'm building them in the same image. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But anyway, again, the point is that it works, right? So essentially that's it, right? We have our backend running in a Docker container, which, I forgot to go over this. It's very, very straightforward stuff. We just we just grab the latest Node image, the Node version 18 image. Very similar to how we did the front end, where we just run an npm install and then copy in the files. And I probably should have a Docker ignore for the Node modules in here as well. Well, actually, yeah, I should. But anyway, so I'm exposing 8080 and then I'm starting it, right? Because 8080 is the port that I chose to expose my my backend on. And that's pretty much it. So I guess the reason why I'm making this video is because I'm at 12 minutes right now. Like we can take what I've shown here, maybe, and as a viewer, maybe you can take this and create your own web app and then deploy it on some machine on your network, or maybe on some EC2 instance or something. And it's very confusing to me how simple this is, but how like difficult it was to find this anywhere on the internet. So essentially I have a script here that builds everything. I'm going to just tell you straight up, I have no idea what this does, but essentially I wanted it to be able to I wanted to be able to CD into my different packages and then run the Docker build, okay? So ChatGPT spit this out, and I just took it. So I'm not like a bash, or I'm not a scripting expert either. But essentially, what we're doing here is we're going into the server directory, we're building this Docker image, and then we're going into the UI directory and we're building this Docker image. We're killing the existing Docker images that are running, and then removing them. So if they're not running, then this will error, but whatever. And then we are running the front end, and then we're running the back end, right? And we're port forwarding the ports that we expose. So essentially, on my local machine, I have 2 Docker containers running. One is exposing port 80 for the front end, because that's HTTP, and one's exposing port 8080, which is the port that I chose for my backend to run on. And I can actually even run this build script real quick. And then while it builds, I'll talk about something else, I guess. But wow, okay, it's already done actually. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's already done because a lot of this is cached. But yeah, I mean, it built the back end, or sorry, it built the front end, built the back end, killed the 2 existing ones, killed the or then removed them, and then started them back up. So I don't know. I guess somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a very good foundation. I think I said this already, but like, it just surprises me that there's a lot of videos out there or tutorials out there that like show like 75% of this, where like they'll show you how to create a React application and set up routing and then set up WebSockets, but then when you deploy it, the WebSockets don't work, or your WebSockets do work, but then your Nginx can't find the route. So essentially, I don't know if some of that stuff is just super common knowledge, but it at least wasn't for me. And a lot of this was like beating my head against the wall, trial and error. But essentially, like, I have exactly what I was looking for. I have a website that's exposed to the internet. It has routes, and it has WebSockets. And it was built using a framework that's really, extensible so that I can make an awesome looking UI as well. So I guess, like, I went through a lot of stuff. I didn't really cover anything in detail. There's still some gray for me, like, essentially, like, my brain kind of just turns off when I look at the Nginx config because I'm not very familiar with it. And also, like why is Express not used here? Like, I think like Express.js would be used in the back end. I had a web app running a long time ago that used Express, and Express is not here at all. So, like, again, I'm very new to like starting from the ground up like this. So, like, the fact that like Express isn't here is kind of weird. But I don't even know why Express is needed. And I guess at the end of the day, this works. If you have any questions, let me know. But yeah, this is just sort of the layout that I went for, and it works okay for exactly what I need. So yeah, see ya.